Husband's sister hates me because her parents like me better. And at our wedding. She tried to announce her pregnancy, but her husband revealed she was cheating and the baby wasn't his. My name is Haley, 30 years old, currently living in San Jose with my husband Aiden. We just got married not long ago after being together for nearly 3 years. I'm an architect, running a small studio specializing in green spaces and urban planning. It's the work I love because it makes me feel like I'm contributing to making this world a bit more breathable. I met Aiden at work. His company was on the 3rd floor, mine on the 7th. We ran into each other a few times in the elevator, then at the cafeteria, and later at mutual friends gatherings. He wasn't the kind of guy who turned heads, but there was something deeply genuine about him. Not loud, not flashy, just the kind of quiet that arrives at the right moment and makes you feel safe. At that time, I had just left a relationship that drained both my emotions and my self-worth. I had no intention of falling in love, but Aiden was different. He didn't try to step into my life with sweet words. He was simply there, quietly, right when I needed someone. And somewhere along the way, I found myself falling in love with the silence he brought. We fell in love slowly, quietly. We moved in together after nearly a year of dating, and everything between us flowed gently, steadily. Aiden was the first man who made me feel chosen, heard, and loved, without ever having to shape myself into someone else. But then, I met his family. And that's when small cracks began to appear. Cracks I didn't see coming. Aiden is the eldest son in a traditional Asian immigrant family. His parents, who settled in California, were strict and placed extremely high expectations on their children. In that family, everything revolved around academic performance, achievements, and how one appeared to others. Love was measured by grades and accolades. And if you weren't the best, you were no one. Aiden has a younger sister named Vanessa. She was always at the top of every ranking. She excelled academically, constantly praised, and was seen as the pride of the entire family. Aiden, on the other hand, loved drawing and design. He once won first prize in a statewide art competition, but in his parents' eyes, it meant nothing. They wanted him to be like Vanessa. And because he wasn't, they saw him as a mistake. He told me how Vanessa's childhood birthdays were always full of parties, big cakes, and a crowd of friends. His own? Sometimes just a tiny slice of cake and a reminder. If you do better next year, maybe we'll throw you one. When it came time for college, they told him plainly. They could only pay for one child. Of course, it was Vanessa. Aiden had to take out loans and move out on his own. I used to think all of that was in the past. That time would soften everything. But then I came into the picture, and things started to shift. His parents really called him, for the first time in years. They invited us over for dinner, asked me about my work, and seemed genuinely excited that Aiden had someone in his life. They said I was smart, mature, and driven. I didn't know if they truly liked me or just liked the image I represented. But for me, the fact that Aiden was finally being acknowledged by his family, that was enough to feel grateful. I just didn't expect that. It would drive Vanessa mad. I hadn't met Vanessa at that point. She lived in another city, rarely kept in touch, and was usually referred to as someone too busy. But the little things I heard were enough to make me uneasy. It felt like I had stepped onto a stage where someone already saw herself as the star, and I was the uninvited act. I wasn't wrong, and I didn't back down. But what I didn't realize was that from that moment on, I had become a thorn in the side of a woman who had spent her whole life being the most adored member of the family. I met Vanessa for the first time on a Sunday afternoon. By then, Aiden had slowly started reconnecting with his parents. They would call more often, check in on us, and invite us over for weekend dinners. Things seemed to be getting better, at least from their side. That day, Aiden's parents told us it would just be a small family lunch. A few close relatives, nothing formal. What they didn't tell me was that Vanessa would be there too. I still remember how it felt walking into that restaurant. Smiling, chatting, everything normal. until Aiden's expression suddenly froze. He leaned toward me and whispered, "Vanessa's here." His voice wasn't angry or even surprised, just hesitant. Vanessa was already seated in the private dining room next to their mother. She wore a dark blue dress, light makeup, and her hair fell in soft waves. She looked every bit the perfect daughter her family always pictured. When she saw us, she stood up and smiled as if everything was perfectly fine. "You must be Haley," she said, stepping toward me and giving me a light hug. I smiled back, caught a little off guard. I had braced myself for coldness. But that hug? It wasn't hostile, but it definitely wasn't warm. It felt rehearsed. Aiden gave his sister a small nod. No words, no smile. And I knew right away, this wasn't the kind of distance you get from not seeing each other for a while. This was the kind of distance you keep, because you want to. The meal started off smoothly. His parents asked me about work, shared some childhood stories about Aiden. I kept things polite, lighthearted, doing my best to keep the atmosphere warm. But I could feel it. Someone was watching me. Quick glances, subtle, but unmistakable. And that someone was Vanessa. She stayed quiet most of the time, just polite smiles and nods. But when Aiden's parents began praising my academic and career accomplishments, the air in the room shifted. Aiden's mom said it was impressive that I started my own studio at such a young age. His dad added that my projects had heart and meaning, not just some trendy design. I thanked them politely, but I could see it. Vanessa's expression had started to change. "Oh, I actually took a course in urban planning once back in college," she said casually, but I dropped it. Felt kind of pointless. That stuff harms the environment, doesn't it? Cuts down trees, ruins the land. Her tone was light, like she was just making an innocent comment. But I knew better. That wasn't a neutral opinion. It was a deliberate jab. Before I could respond, Aiden spoke up. "Haley works in sustainable design. Nothing destructive about it. Her studio even partners with environmental organizations." He said it calmly, smiling, but he placed a gentle hand on my back as if to steady me. Vanessa gave a tight-lipped smile and shrugged. "That's good to know. I was just curious." From that moment on, she started chiming in more often. Not with direct attacks, but with those soft-spoken, carefully layered remarks. Every time I said something, she'd throw in a little, "Oh, really?" correct a detail, or mention a counterexample that subtly undermined me. As the meal was winding down, Aiden stood up, reaching for the check. But Vanessa turned toward him and said casually, "Shouldn't Haley pay?" I mean, this lunch was kind of for her, right? And I heard she makes good money, doesn't she? The table went silent. I looked at her. Not angry, just surprised. I didn't understand why she felt the need to humiliate me in front of everyone. But I also knew I wouldn't lower myself to argue. Aiden's mom frowned and looked at her. "Vanessa, what are you saying? You don't ask a guest to pay for their own meal." His dad chimed in as well. "Haley's our guest, and even if she weren't, that's still an inappropriate thing to say." Vanessa gave a short, sarcastic laugh, grabbed her purse, and stood up. "I'm busy," she said flatly and walked out of the room. I had never seen Aiden that quiet on the drive home. When we got back to the apartment, he said just one thing. I tried to give her another chance, but maybe I was wrong. I didn't say anything, because back then I had no idea that this was only the beginning. After that meeting, I thought maybe things would calm down. Vanessa didn't live near the family anymore. She had her own job, her own life. I figured there was no real reason for her to keep paying attention to mine, but I had underestimated her. About a week later, I started noticing small signs. Every time I posted a story about work on my public Instagram, the one I used to share design projects, Vanessa was always the first to view it. Always her. No likes, no comments, not even a follow. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, but it kept happening. I posted about a small exhibition I was invited to. She watched it. I shared photos of my team finishing a community project up north. She saw that too. Even the silly little clips of me buying coffee or laughing with Aiden. She viewed them all. I didn't get it. If she didn't like me, why silently stalk me like that? And that wasn't even the worst of it. One evening, while I was tidying up around the house, Aiden walked into the room holding his phone, his face suddenly serious. He told me I needed to see the latest message in the family group chat. We had a shared group chat. Me, Aiden, his parents, and Vanessa. She rarely spoke in it. But this time, she sent a Facebook link. No caption, no context, just a link. I opened it and froze. It was an old post, almost 10 years ago. A blurry photo of me in high school hugging my ex-boyfriend. We were laughing, carefree. It was my first love, long forgotten. I didn't even remember that photo existed. Vanessa said nothing, but her message couldn't have been louder. I sighed. I wasn't ashamed, just confused. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had a past, like everyone else. So why dig through my old Facebook just to find one forgotten photo and throw it in my face? I calmly replied, "That's a photo of me and my high school boyfriend. It was a long time ago. I'd honestly forgotten it even existed." Vanessa responded almost instantly. "If it were me, I'd ask them to take it down. I mean, you're about to be someone's wife after all." I didn't reply. I knew better. The more I said, the more power she'd feel she had. Aiden wasn't as quiet as I was. He texted back, "There's nothing wrong with that photo. It's the past. And I have no issue with the past of the woman I love." Then he added, "If we're talking about standards, Haley earns 4 times what you do." I don't usually encourage comparisons, but in that moment, I'll admit, he made me feel seen. Someone stood up for me. And that someone was the man I was going to marry. Vanessa left the group chat immediately. No reply. But later, she called Aiden privately and cried. Said he embarrassed her, said she was only looking out for him, said I wasn't as clear or innocent as I pretended to be. Aiden said just one thing. "If you keep attacking my fiancé, don't be surprised when I cut you off for good." I thought that shutdown would be the end of it. I was wrong. About 2 weeks later, we got news no one saw coming. Vanessa had secretly gotten married. No announcement, no invitations, no notice to the family. She just went to Vegas, had a private wedding, and sent a short text to her mother. I got married. My husband's name is Isaac. The whole family was stunned. Aiden's parents were furious, confused. None of us had ever heard the name Isaac before. It was all so sudden. As for me, all I felt was unease. Deep, unsettling unease. Because I knew, with someone like Vanessa, things are rarely just about love. A month after Vanessa's surprise wedding, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. "I know you haven't liked me, and I haven't exactly been kind to you either. But I'm married now, and I want things to be different. I'd like to invite you and Aiden over for dinner. We don't have to be close. Just a fresh start." I hesitated at first. After everything, I didn't believe Vanessa was being sincere, but Aiden thought maybe we should give her a chance. His family was trying to rebuild itself, and honestly, I was curious. I wanted to know who this Isaac was, the man she'd rushed into marrying. I agreed, even though something inside me still felt off. Vanessa lived in a pretty upscale neighborhood in the suburbs. When we arrived, the door was already open. Isaac greeted us himself. And to be honest, I was surprised by how decent he seemed. He was clearly older than Vanessa, mid-40s maybe. Well-dressed, calm demeanor, the kind of man who'd clearly been through life. When he shook hands with Aiden and me, he smiled warmly, effortlessly. "It's great to meet you both," he said. "Vanessa's told me a lot about her brother and his fiancée." Vanessa stood behind him, nodding slightly, offering a polite smile. She looked different that day. Hair neatly tied, soft makeup, a beige sweater hugging her frame. She seemed gentler. The house was modern, filled with smart tech. A few wedding photos from Vegas hung on the wall. Isaac showed Aiden his home office, while Vanessa and I stayed in the kitchen, waiting for dinner to finish cooking. The air was slightly awkward at first. But then, Vanessa spoke up. "I want to apologize," she said, "for everything. The Facebook message, the dinner incident, my attitude." I looked at her. I didn't respond right away, because I wasn't sure if this was sincere or just another performance. "I was jealous of you," she continued. "I hated seeing you win our parents over. I was always the best. Then you came along. Better, calmer, and I didn't know how to handle that." I still didn't say anything, but I was listening. "But I'm okay now," she added. "Isaac makes me feel truly loved. And I want to let go of all the jealousy, all the comparisons. I just want things to be normal between us." I looked her in the eyes. "If you mean that, then I don't want to stay distant forever either." Vanessa nodded and poured more water into my glass. She smiled, but something about it still felt off. A kind of calm that didn't feel real. It was the kind of quiet that felt staged, the kind of peace so carefully constructed that I had to wonder, was this really the first time she'd tried to start over with someone? I still had doubts, but I didn't say a word, because some answers only time could reveal. That evening passed peacefully. There was laughter. There was wine. It almost felt like a dinner between adults who had finally put things behind them. Isaac shared funny stories about work, joked about tense meetings, and effortlessly included Vanessa in every conversation. He wasn't distant or arrogant, just effortlessly present. I found myself starting to relax, just a little. Not because I trusted Vanessa, but because I trusted Aiden's instincts. He was careful with people. And if he could sit there, smiling and asking Isaac casual questions, then at least I knew I wasn't alone. But even in the softest moments, I could feel it. Something lingering beneath the surface. A quiet wave waiting for the right moment to crash. As we were leaving, Vanessa hugged me again. This time, longer, warmer, and yet, strangely, it still didn't feel real. I smiled and returned the hug. But deep down, I already knew. People don't change just because they say they do, especially not those who've spent their whole lives turning words into performances. Dinner went by rather smoothly. Isaac was polite. He talked about his job, a few real estate projects he was currently investing in. Vanessa shared about their Vegas trip, about why they rushed the wedding, saying they had been seeing each other for a while but didn't tell anyone because they feared their parents would disapprove. I didn't believe everything she said, but I didn't react either, because I could feel she was testing something. Maybe it was a genuine effort to make peace. Or maybe she was setting up for something that hadn't happened yet. Before we left, Vanessa said something that I didn't fully understand until much later. "I hope you get married soon. Aiden needs a mature woman to keep him grounded. And to be a mother too." I just smiled. I didn't answer, but Aiden squeezed my hand gently, as if he knew. I was holding something in. That night on the way home, I asked Aiden, "What do you think?" He stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "Isaac seems decent. But Vanessa, she's still Vanessa. I'm not sure she's changed, but I know one thing. If she ever does anything to hurt you again, I won't be so patient." I rested my head on his shoulder and whispered something silently in my heart. I hoped this time. I was wrong. I thought that evening at Vanessa's house might be a turning point. That maybe after that seemingly sincere conversation, things would calm down. But no, that was just the quiet before the storm. A week after that dinner, Vanessa started texting me more often. At first, it was casual check-ins, then slowly the questions got more personal. When are you and Aiden planning to get married? Have you thought about having kids? Do you really not want to be a mom? I answered those questions once, clearly. That Aiden and I were happy, that we weren't in a rush, that having children was a personal choice and not something anyone could or should force. But for Vanessa, one answer was never enough. One time she called me. Her voice was soft at first. "Haley, I know you're independent and successful, but once you're married, you should really start thinking ahead. Aiden's the eldest son. My parents still dream of having grandkids." I tried to keep my voice calm. Aiden and I are on the same page. We're not ready, and having children is a decision for the two of us, not the whole family. Vanessa laughed gently on the other end. "Oh, I was just bringing it up. Of course no one can force you, but maybe our parents don't see it that way." I hung up right after she said that. That night, I told Aiden. He sighed, not surprised. She's playing her old game again, using our parents as a shield to apply pressure. I nodded. "Do you think we should talk to her directly?" He paused for a few seconds, then shook his head. "Number, that's what she wants. She wants us pulled in. The more we engage, the further she'll push. Let me handle it." I trusted Aiden, but inside me, something new began to grow. Something I hadn't felt with Vanessa before. It wasn't fear of what she might do to me. It was fear that she might take the love Aiden had just rekindled with his family and twist it. That she might make him feel guilty for choosing me. But it didn't stop there. One evening, Aiden called his mom to ask about some paperwork. It was a normal call, or so I thought, until he hung up and looked at me with a confused expression. My mom said, "You should reconsider not having children, that the family still hopes for grandkids." I didn't know what to say, but I knew. This wasn't coming from his mother. It was Vanessa. She didn't need to say anything directly. Just a few well-placed comments here and there. Haley is successful, but not exactly traditional. And that was enough. I started to feel exhausted. Not because of the opinions, but because I realized I was being pushed into a battle I never signed up for. We weren't even married yet. And already, I was being treated like I owed his family a child. Like I needed to justify my lifestyle. Like I had to present a full resume proving I was worthy of Aiden's love. I told Aiden I didn't want this conversation to repeat. He was quiet for a moment, then took my hand. "We won't let anyone make our decisions for us, not even family." I believed him. I did. But deep down, a question kept echoing in my mind. If one day Vanessa decided to destroy everything we had, would I be strong enough to hold on to the man I love? Aiden proposed to me on a quiet Friday night. No stage, no rose petals scattered across the floor. Just the two of us sitting side by side on a bench at the park where we had our very first date, with warm streetlights glowing overhead and soft music drifting from a nearby cafe. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, opened it without much fanfare, looked at me and asked, "Will you walk through the rest of your days with me?" I laughed through tears as I nodded. Not because I was surprised, but because I was relieved. Because after everything, we still chose each other. We shared the engagement news the next day. I set the post to show only close friends, but somehow Vanessa found out. Because not even a day had passed before Aiden got a message. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Just one sentence. No congratulations, no curiosity, just a warning. Aiden read the message, then put his phone down without replying. He turned to me and said, "She still can't stop." I sighed. I was used to the way she operated. Never direct, always in half shadows, leaving one sentence behind like a hook designed to make you question yourself. But this time I wasn't backing down. We started planning the wedding. A modest celebration. Nothing flashy. just people who truly mattered. I chose a lakeside restaurant for the reception. Simple, cozy, with lots of open space, just the way I liked it. Aiden's parents were thrilled. They supported everything with enthusiasm. Then one day, his mother called me. "Haley, I think you should invite Vanessa." I hesitated. "I know there have been issues between you two, but she's still Aiden's sister. It would feel strange if she wasn't there." I didn't want to argue with his mother, but I also didn't want to make room for someone I knew wasn't coming to celebrate. Aiden had been listening to the call from beginning to end. When I hung up, he simply said, "If you don't want her there, I'll talk to Mom." I shook my head. "No need. We'll invite her. But I need you to promise me one thing." He looked at me. "If she crosses a line, you'll be the one to stop her. Not me. Not anyone else. You." He took my hand. "I promise." A week later, Vanessa responded to the invitation, very politely. "Thank you both for inviting me. I'll be there. I have something I'd like to share with you in person that day. Hope that's all right." I read the message and felt a chill crawl down my spine. Something she wanted to share. At my wedding? What kind of thing had to be saved until the wedding day to be revealed? Aiden told me not to worry, that she just liked creating drama. But I wasn't going to be that naive. I started building a backup plan. I spoke to the restaurant manager and asked them to stick strictly to the timeline. I told the MC that only people on the approved list were allowed to speak. I pulled my maid of honor, Marfa, aside and told her that if Vanessa did anything unusual, she should signal the DJ to cut the mic immediately. I didn't want my wedding to turn into a stage for emotional confessions, but I also didn't want to cause a scene. I wanted to protect Aiden's dignity, and my own. A week before the wedding, I saw Vanessa again at a small tea gathering organized by my future mother-in-law. She walked in looking elegant as ever. Red lips, soft curls, graceful posture. She smiled at me, but there was no warmth in it. "I heard your dress is really simple. Doesn't sound very bridal." I answered calmly. "I chose what makes me feel comfortable." She nodded, then lowered her eyes to her stomach. She touched it lightly, almost absent-mindedly. "Guess you'll start thinking about babies after the wedding, right? I mean, Aiden's not that young anymore." I stared at her. For a long time. I didn't say a word. Because at that moment, something shifted inside me. A sense that something was about to happen. And I couldn't be sure if the baby in her belly even belonged to Isaac. But I was sure of one thing. Vanessa was planning something. And it was going to happen. On my wedding day. Our wedding took place on a clear afternoon. No rain, no strong winds. Everything unfolded exactly the way I'd imagined. A warm, intimate celebration. Nothing extravagant. Our close friends, family, and trusted colleagues were all there. I wore a white dress I picked myself. Not showy, but elegant. Aiden stood at the end of the aisle in a slate gray suit, neat and simple. The way he looked at me, like the rest of the world didn't matter anymore, was all I needed. The ceremony went smoothly. We exchanged vows, slipped rings on each other's fingers, and held hands amid the applause. I saw Aiden's parents wiping tears. My mom squeezed my dad's hand. And Marfa, my best friend, stood beside me, smiling as if she were holding me upright with her joy. Everything was perfect. Until we moved into the speeches. My father went first. He talked about my journey growing up as an independent woman, about his pride in seeing me find someone who truly loved me. His voice broke when he mentioned my mother, and when they finished, they held hands as the room burst into applause. Next was Aiden's father. He kept it short, mostly thanking me for helping Aiden reconnect with the family, and for loving the boy even when he thought he didn't deserve anything good. I was already holding back tears, and then I saw her. Vanessa. She began walking toward the microphone. No one called her. No one invited her to speak, but there she was, champagne in hand, that tight little smile on her lips, reaching toward the mic as Aiden's dad stepped back. Marfa caught it instantly and signaled the DJ. The sound cut off just as Vanessa opened her mouth. She froze, looked around, clearly confused. I stood still, keeping my face neutral. Aiden tightened his grip on my hand. Marfa stepped forward, gently said something to Vanessa, then took the microphone back and continued with the program. But Vanessa didn't sit down. Instead, she climbed onto a chair, standing tall, as if she needed to be above everyone else in the room. "Sorry," she said, "but I have something important to share. And I think this is the perfect moment." No one spoke. The entire room fell silent. Vanessa looked toward me, then around the hall. She placed a hand on her stomach. "I'm pregnant." There were murmurs, a few soft gasps. And I wanted to share this because today is a special day for our family. Everyone is here. Everyone is present. I looked at Aiden. He stayed calm, but I saw the tension flicker in his eyes. Vanessa smiled and lifted her champagne glass like a toast. "I hope everyone will offer blessings for me and Isaac." All eyes turned to Isaac, who was still seated at a table below. His expression remained composed, but then he stood, walked straight up toward the microphone Marfa still held. "I'm sorry," he said. "I have something to say too." Marfa hesitated, then handed him the mic. Isaac stood at the center of the hall. Light from the ceiling cast a cold glow across his face. He looked at Vanessa and spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "Yes, she's pregnant, but the child is not mine." The room fell into stunned silence. Vanessa stood frozen. Her hand trembled slightly, still holding her glass. Isaac went on. "I found out a few weeks ago, and I've kept quiet. But today, when she chose to announce this at someone else's wedding, I realized the truth needed to be heard." I squeezed Aiden's hand so tightly I nearly dug into his skin. Isaac pulled out his phone. "Here are the photos, the messages, the private investigator's report. I hired someone to follow her once I started having doubts." He handed the phone to Aiden's father. Both he and Aiden's mother leaned in to look. I saw their faces slowly drain of color. Vanessa still stood there, saying nothing. The silence hung heavier than any words, and hundreds of eyes were fixed on her. No more applause, no more congratulations. Isaac turned to me and Aiden. "I'm sorry this happened at your wedding, but I figured if she was going to turn this into a stage, the audience deserved to know the whole play." He bowed his head, then walked out of the hall, leaving Vanessa behind, frozen like a statue. Aiden's parents looked at her but said nothing, and Aiden, after a long silence, spoke only one sentence. "Get out, now." Vanessa stepped down from the chair, still clutching her half-empty glass. Her eyes were red, but she tried to keep her pride intact. She turned and walked away. No one stopped her. No one followed. She came uninvited. And she left unmissed. For a moment, I thought the wedding had shattered. But strangely, the mood began to recover. Marfa gave a speech, light and humorous. Aiden said a few warm words to pull everyone back to the present. We resumed the celebration. Not perfect, but real. And honestly, that was all I ever wanted. I used to think that after pulling a stunt like that at our wedding, Vanessa would finally disappear. But I gave her too much credit. The day after the wedding, before Aiden and I had even finished unwrapping gifts or tossing out the wilting flowers, I received an email from a strange address. No name. No profile picture. But the message, it could only be from one person. "So you think you've won? I swear I'll make you pay for making me a laughingstock in front of everyone." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, not out of fear, out of exhaustion. After everything, she still believed she was the victim. Aiden walked into the room just as I was reading it. He glanced at the screen and asked softly, "She reached out again?" I nodded and handed him the phone. Aiden read it, said nothing, but his expression had hardened. "She thinks this is all your fault. Not even a sliver of reflection." That very afternoon, Aiden called Isaac. They talked for nearly half an hour. When it ended, Aiden said, "I'm sending him the email. He'll need it if he decides to file for divorce." I wasn't surprised. And sure enough, just a few days later, Isaac confirmed via message that he had officially filed, granting Vanessa no rights, no property, no alimony. She betrayed me, and that was her choice. She'll face the consequences alone, Isaac wrote. Things were different on Aiden's family's side. His mother called me, crying. "Haley, you didn't deserve this. I'm sorry, I thought she was just selfish. I never imagined she would do something like that at your wedding." I told her I didn't blame her, but I also made something very clear. I no longer wanted any contact with Vanessa. In any form. I wasn't going to forbid them from having a relationship with their daughter, but I wouldn't allow anyone to pressure me into forgiving or accepting her. Aiden was even firmer. He called his parents and said it directly. "I don't want her showing up at anything Haley is part of. If that puts you in a difficult position, then we'll step back." His mother wept. His father stayed silent for a long time. Then he finally spoke. "We already lost our daughter once, but if keeping her means losing our son, it's not worth it." And from that day forward, we cut Vanessa off completely. No messages, no explanations. She sent a few more anonymous emails, but after Aiden forwarded them to Isaac and their legal team, everything went quiet. And then, silence. A new kind of silence settled in. No more judgmental glances, no more veiled sarcasm, no more defending myself within the walls of family. We took a delayed honeymoon in the northern mountains. No cell service, no Wi-Fi. Just pine trees, flowing streams, and a sky so clear it looked untouched by time. That first night, sitting by the fireplace with Aiden, I asked him, "Do you regret it?" "Choosing me. When I brought so much chaos into your life?" He didn't answer right away. He simply turned and looked at me. Really looked. Then he said, "I didn't choose you. I love you. And loving someone means accepting the storm that comes with them. But the storm was never you. It's the people who couldn't accept that you were finally happy." I held him tightly. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt truly at peace. 8 months later, Aiden and I moved into a small house in the quiet suburbs. Not too far from the city center, but far enough to have our own little sky. The backyard was bigger than we expected. We planted a few flower beds, set an old wooden table by the fence. Aiden would make coffee in the mornings and I would read. We weren't building a perfect life. We were choosing peace and holding on to it together. I haven't heard anything from Vanessa since Isaac finalized the divorce. Through someone we knew, we learned she had tried returning to her parents' house, but they turned her away. Eventually, she moved in with a friend. No one really knows how she's doing now. And honestly, no one is asking. I don't feel triumphant. I don't feel like I won anything. I just feel light. I used to think I needed an apology, some formal acknowledgement. But the more time passed, the more I realized what I truly needed wasn't for someone else to change. It was to be strong enough not to let them change me. Family isn't always a safe place. Some people with your blood can hurt you deeper than any stranger ever could. And the ones you choose to love, the ones you build a home with, they can give you a sense of belonging that you once believed didn't exist. Aiden is my family. Not because he's perfect, but because he never asked me to be perfect just to be loved. One autumn night, I was editing photos for a new project, and Aiden was reading beside me. He looked up and asked, "If you could go back, would you want things to happen differently?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Number? I think If those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't know how strong I really am. And I wouldn't have known who would truly stand beside me. Aiden smiled. He didn't say anything. He just closed his book and gently pulled the blanket over my legs. Sometimes it's the quietest gestures that bring the most beautiful endings to a storm-filled journey. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to love you the most, if you've ever been pushed away from the happiness you deserve, I want you to know one thing. You're not alone, and you're not wrong. You weren't born to endure. You don't have to sacrifice your peace to prove you're forgiving. Sometimes, walking away is how you love yourself better. And in the end, the ones who truly deserve your heart will always choose to stay.